something with your hair? It really suits you. Welcome to the ChrissieCast live from the compound, where every week I chat to someone interesting from anywhere in the world. Today's chat comes to you live from London and features the tour de force. That is Cindy Gallop, a radical, innovative, groundbreaking, transformative woman who doesn't do the status quo or, in her own words, likes to blow shit up. Chrissie Casters, get ready to take notes. I give you Cindy Gallop. Welcome to the Chrissie Cast, the remarkable Cindy Gallop.
Thrilled to be here.
Now, I want to talk to you first about the lie. We are told our whole lives, Cindy Gallop, that getting married and having kids is the goal. And if we do that, we are going to be happy. You have said that we've got to start asking ourselves what makes us truly happy and make decisions based on our own needs versus societal expectations. How?
It's very simple, really, Chrissie. Literally, I say to people, and especially to women, just stop and take a long, hard look into yourself and ask yourself, what would really make me happy? Because many, many women have never asked themselves that question. And by the way, many men haven't either. And so this absolutely applies to everybody. But, this is why, I am very open about the fact that I have never, ever wanted to be married. I have never wanted children. Very glad that I always knew that as opposed to finding out the hard way by having them. I adore being single. I'm not a relationship person. I cannot wait to die alone. And I date younger men casually and recreationally for sex. And I'm deliberately very public about all of that because that is what makes me happy. But we do not have enough role models in our society for women and as I say, for men as well, that demonstrate you can live your life very differently to the way that you're expected to and still be amazingly happy. And I'm one of the happiest people I know. And so literally, all it takes is just being really honest with yourself and asking yourself, what would make me happy?
That sounds very, very simple. What are the steps for women listening that... See, I when I was a little girl, I never did that wedding dress dream thing. It was never a dream of mine. But because I felt like that wasn't normal, I denied all that. You deny, and you take on, the expectations that are heaped on you. What advice would you have to somebody that feels in their core that they agree with everything you just said, but they can't find the courage to own it as you have?
Honestly, you have to just not give a damn what anybody else thinks. That is the only way to live your life. Because to your point, you're absolutely right. There are many people out there living lives they don't really want to be living, in marriages they don't really want to be in, because of what their parents expected, what all their friends began doing simultaneously around them, because of every message popular culture sends us. And you have to just put all of that aside and go, I don't give a damn what anybody else thinks, because that is the only way I'm going to find the path that is right for me.
I want to talk to you about this concept of the one that we've all been sold since birth. I've never believed in it. It is utterly absurd to me. How dangerous is it for women to subscribe to this belief that there is one person for them that holds the key to their happiness? And why do you think society wants us to keep believing it?
I mean, what I will say as a caveat is that obviously there are out there a number of lucky people who found the one, and the one is absolutely delivering in every way that they wanted them to. And I would highlight as an example of that my own parents. My father is no longer with us, but basically he and my mother were married for 60 years before he died. And theirs was absolutely an amazing love story, over all that time. But, the fact of the matter is that not everyone is going to find the one. And when you are hell-bent on finding the one, you keep casting people in that role who absolutely do not deserve it. So you are actively looking for someone to fill that role, and you will overlook a ton of red flags and a ton of, very bad signs because you just feel that you must find the one and you are incomplete without doing that. And I just think that that is absolutely terrible. I am that very rare person who has absolutely no desire whatsoever to be in love. And I have to tell you that when you decide you don't want to be in love, it strips whole layers of crap out of your life. It is extraordinarily time efficient. So for example, I'll be sitting there, say, reading a magazine, and I will come across an article about, how to improve your relationship. I go, well, not relevant. I can just fly past it, and I haven't wasted time reading all of that stuff that you read when you are going, what's wrong with me? Why haven't I met the one yet? Let me buy this book, read this magazine article, because maybe that will help me find the one. Honestly, you just take so much crap out of your life when you go, fuck that for a game of soldiers. I'm not looking for the one anymore.
I think it might be, almost like, the weight loss industry. It's a whole industry, this kind of preying on women's insecurities. I think the one might be us. Absolutely.
I mean, honestly, I am enormously fond of my own company. My idea of absolute bliss is to be in my apartment on my own with nowhere to go, no one to see. By the way, I was really happy in the pandemic because I got to do that every single day. But you're absolutely right, Chrissie, in that I know it's a truism, but you have to love yourself before you can love anybody else. And it's a truism because it's true. And so, make yourself the one, which is why I go back to my original point of, when you ask yourself what would really make you happy, you are replacing that goal of finding the one with looking into yourself as the one and asking, how can I make myself happy? And I just think that's a really important question to ask yourself.
I do too, but what happens if you've spent 10, 20, 30 years buying the lie and then you realise what makes you happy, I guess dismantling what you've already done? Do you think that that is another reason that people stay in unhappy lives because of the ramifications of their decisions for other people?
I think you're absolutely right. They do. And they don't realise that while it takes some initial effort, they will be so much happier walking away. And walking away is a lot easier than they think. I am a member of a number of women's groups on Facebook. And actually, it's interesting, now that we're having this conversation, I'm realizing because Facebook changed their algorithm so often, I, for some reason, am not being served these posts as much as I used to be in the past. But it is enormously depressing, the number of women's groups on Facebook where there are women asking advice from each other, where the post starts something like, I've been married for 25 years, my husband is, and then fill in the blank with a ton of deeply undesirable things, he doesn't want to change, I'm feeling and people feel that, because there is, as you say, there's so much entrenched around, the marriage they're in, the relationship they're in, that leaving it is impossible, and it is absolutely not. And honestly, the number of women who have completely reinvented their lives and are so much happier accordingly when they do leave is amazing. Because I'm also, and by the way, again, the Facebook algorithm, God knows, I'm not a fan of it, but I'm also being served posts on groups that are people showing off their homes. But these are groups where it is small homes. And actually what is very gratifying about those posts is that there are a ton of them that go something on the lines of, my husband and I divorced, I moved into this tiny space, I've made it my own, I'm so happy here. So those are very cheering posts to read. But the fact of the matter is, absolutely walk away from a situation that is not serving you. And by the way, especially do it because, I'm... as you'll know, Chrissie, I really fight against ageism, and I'm absolutely flying the flag for older women. And what I find astonishing is people have it in their heads that there is some kind of inexorable downward slide from like 40, 50, when the fact of the matter is you have got as much of your life to live again as you've lived to date. You are 50 and you're going, oh my God, I'm deeply unhappy with my husband, but I can't leave him. And you're going to live another 50 years. And you're going to keep doing it in this situation? Don't do that. What are you going to do with your next 50 years? Do something different, because you've got a whole other life to live all over again for the same duration you've just lived, the one you're in right now.
My dad once told me, he's given me a couple of nuggets of very good advice, and this one really stuck with me. He once said, if ever in your mind you hear your voice saying, oh, I'm too old for that, you're not.
Absolutely. He's absolutely right.
The way that he came up with that is that he'd been in the military for 20 years, from sort of 16 to 36, and he was offered a change of life at 37. And at the time, he was like, oh, I'm too old to do that. And of course, 37 is...
Oh, my
I
God!
know. And when he gave me that little phrase and then backed it up with that story, I think of that at least once a week, and it's really changed my life, because you are never you're not unless you're dead. You must change things.
Yep. No, exactly. I always remember years ago, I was working as a consultant for a Japanese advertising agency called Hakuhodo. And so I spent a lot of time in Tokyo working.
Just by the by, how wonderful is Tokyo?
Oh my God, I love Tokyo. It's one of my favorite cities.
Me too.
And so I was there for a week working with Hakuhodo. And one evening, I and my Japanese colleagues all went out to dinner. And we went to a sushi restaurant and got completely tanked on sake. And in the course of the conversation, one of the women at Hakuhodo, who was a creative director, revealed that in her youth, she had been apprenticed to a very famous Japanese soothsayer, fortune teller figure. And it was a short apprenticeship. She was only there for 6 months. But in that time, he taught her to read palms. And in a relatively limited way, but she could read, your love life, your health. So anyway, we're all drunk on sake. So we're all putting our hands and going, read me. So she read everybody's hands around the table. And obviously everybody else's she read in Japanese, but she had to read mine in English. And her English wasn't great, which is part of the charm of this. She looked at my palm and she said to me, you are only halfway. And I was 49 at the time, and that's exactly how I felt. I was only halfway. And I tell people this story to get them to absolutely see, as you said, Chrissie, that you are never too old to do anything. And in fact, at the age of 50, when most people think it's this downward slide, you've got, as I said, as long to live over again. What are you going to do with all of that time?
Yeah. And it's like, I've got 3 kids, and when they're feeling sad or bored or whatever, I say to them, I remember maybe 4 days from my entire childhood. You've just got to get through this bit. This is not living. Everybody says, oh, it's the greatest days of your life. It isn't. You wait until you have full agency over your life. I am just keeping you safe and warm and as mentally stable as I can until your life begins. This feels like it, but it isn't.
Exactly. Oh my God, I could not agree more.
Now, I want to talk about selfishness and this trope that women that don't have children or remain single are selfish. And I've never liked it because selfishness is an abhorrent and inherently negative trait. What do you think that is about, the use of the word selfish to describe women like you, for example?
Honestly, jealousy. Quite frankly, that is people envious of somebody else's freedom, turning that into a negative perception. And it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, one could equally argue back, not that I do, that, somebody with children is selfish for taking up more resources than, someone who isn't, but no, I mean, that's just a ridiculous thing to say, and it's absolutely born out of the patriarchy. It's absolutely born out of the perception that a woman's role is to be a wife and mother. And seriously, fuck that shit.
Fuck that shit, Cindy.
Fuck that shit. I was interviewed last year by another host on a podcast. And this was specifically focused on entrepreneurialism and, the challenges of starting up businesses. And so the host said to me very earnestly, so Cindy, given all the stress you face as an entrepreneur every day, do you have a daily self-care practice? And I went, oh, yeah. Absolutely. I absolutely have a daily self-care practice. My daily self-care practice is I have no husband and I have no children.
I can't stand the word self-care. It's so cheesy to me.
I know. But that is my self-care practice.
Yeah. Mine is doing whatever I like, whenever I want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And walking. I started walking about 4 years ago, and it's really changed my life. And that's as close to a self-care practice as I would say, because it's time alone. It is something absolutely for myself. I work out all my problems and everything. I keep myself on track with that, and I've found that has been life-changing.
Excellent.
Now, I don't want to die alone is often a reason people stay in unfulfilling relationships, in dead-end lives, all of that. You say very clearly that you can't wait to die alone. Why are people so afraid of this concept of dying alone?
I know. Honestly, I find that absolutely bizarre, because, I mean, the truth of the matter is, I make that statement deliberately to push back on that concept, because it's ridiculous when people say that. But the fact of the matter is that I won't die alone because I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by amazing family and amazing friends, so despite the fact that I am alone in the societal construct sense, actually I know that as I get older, as I get infirm, when I die, I will have around me my wonderful sisters, their families. We're lucky to be a very close-knit family. I will have amazing friends. I have a wonderful, network of very, very good friends. So I'm never going to die alone. And I find it astonishing that people think that the only thing that prevents you dying alone is the one. I mean, that's ridiculous in itself. And that devalues the other relationships in your life.
And statistically, it's bonkers because women outlive men. So the fact of the matter is that you're still married and you're in a miserable relationship until the day you die. You are going to die alone.
Yeah, exactly.
I do think all of that is jealousy and it's excuses. I've got an interview coming up with a podcast interview with a specialist in attachment theories and how we're all different, you know, according to our own childhood trauma and whatever. And I've been researching her and her theories, and I thought it was interesting that the attachments and the sense of belonging that some people get from friendships is absolutely as potent as that which other people get from romantic relationships. And if you nail that, then you'll never die alone. And if you do, who cares? You come into this world alone, you leave it alone as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk about relationships. You say you're blissfully, ecstatically unmarried. You did have one long-term relationship, and I wanted to know what were the elements in that made you realise that that sort of thing just wasn't for you? Sure.
So, I mean, this was many years ago. I was in my early 40s at the time. And to be perfectly frank, that particular relationship ended because he was going through an extremely acrimonious divorce. And when I say acrimonious, it redefined the term acrimonious. And I have to say, he had 3 children. And I saw the impact of an acrimonious divorce on children. It's made me feel very strongly about divorce and how divorces play out ever since. But
how do you feel about divorce and how divorces play out? What is your sort of perspective from the outside?
Sure. So I have, a number of close friends and relations who have been through very difficult divorces, and what experience has led me to say to them, and this is absolutely the advice I give, is there are some things more important than either justice or money. And what I mean by that is, we're talking about battles that are playing out in courts over money, over assets, over the children. And what I say to, and obviously, by the way, there are 2 sides to every story. I'm just talking about the half that is who I know. But what I say to them is, whatever the other party wants, give it to them. Do anything you have to remove this daily dose of negativity from your life, because it's soul destroying. There is no point locking yourself. It doesn't matter how unfair that ends up being. Some things are more important, and be able to move on and live your life without this daily dumping of negativity and unpleasantness and conflict in it all day, every day. It's absolutely worth just, giving them what they want and walking away. That's what I feel very strongly about.
Yeah, I also feel very strongly about that. I had my first sort of experience as an adult with a couple that had broken up. It was so awful for her and for him. And it went on for so long. And actually, I think it was about 5 years of utter misery. And
oh my, 5 years.
5 years. And I watched it unfolding, and I just thought, well, the great irony here is that the relationship that you were in day to day served your sanity a lot more than the last 5 years. And in the end, they fought so hard over exactly what you said, money and all of those other pointless things that you can get again.
Yep.
And they both lost their minds and they lost all their money. At the end of the process, the lawyers got everything and they got nothing. And they could have done that on day one, exactly as you said, give them what they want. And I remember saying to her, you can keep doing this, but who wins? It's not you. You don't win.
Exactly.
Stuck. Exactly. All right. I have 2 sons, Cindy, teenagers, and I want to talk to you about porn. You are the face and mind and body and soul of Make Love Not Porn. What is porn? pornography doing to young people?
So what I will say to that, Chrissie, is what I've been saying for 15 years, ever since I launched Make Love Not Porn, which is that the issue isn't porn. The issue is that we don't talk about sex in the real world. The issue is that, many things are laid at porn's door that should be laid at society's. As long as we continue to be as fucked up around sex as we currently are, as long as we fail to educate openly and honestly and to normalize talking about sex, we fail to give people a real-world mindset with which they could then approach the viewing of what is produced performative entertainment. Because the problem is, as long as we don't talk openly and honestly about sex, that's the only place that people go to learn about sex, because it's the only place you can see people actually doing it, until, of course, I launched Make Love Not Porn.
Tell my listeners what exactly Make Love Not Porn is. It's very interesting.
Sure. And I should start by saying that first and foremost, Make Love Not Porn is an accident, because I did not set out to do anything I'm very bizarrely doing now. It came about because, as we've discussed, I date younger men, and realized many years ago that when we don't talk openly and honestly about sex, porn becomes sex education by default in not a good way. And, I'm a naturally action-oriented person. I went, right, I'm going to do something about this. And so 15 years ago, pure little side venture, I put up on no money a tiny clunky website at MakeLoveNotPorn.com that in its original version was kind of a public service announcement. Porn world versus real world. Here's what happens in the porn world. Here's what really happens in the real world. I launched Make Love Not Porn at the TED conference in 2009. I became the only TED speaker to say the words, "come on my face" on the TED stage.
I think that's probably a title you still hold, Cindy.
I think it is, strangely enough. The talk went viral as a result, and it drove this extraordinary global response to my tiny website that I had never anticipated. Thousands of people wrote to me from all around the world, and I realized I'd uncovered a huge global social issue. And so I then felt I had a responsibility to take Make Love Not Porn forwards in a way that would make it much more effective, helpful, and far-reaching. And so I turned it into a business designed to do good and make money simultaneously, which is what I believe all business should be ultimately. So today, Make Love Not Porn is, as our tagline says, pro-sex, pro-porn, pro-knowing the difference. We are the world's first and only user-generated and, importantly, 100% human-curated social sex video sharing platform. So we're kind of what Facebook would be if it allowed you to openly, healthily, sexually self-express, which it clearly doesn't. The way to think about us is, if porn is the Hollywood blockbuster movie, Make Love Not Porn is the badly needed documentary. We are a unique window onto the funny, messy, loving, wonderful sex we all have in the real world. And what we're doing is we are socializing, normalizing, and destigmatizing sex, bringing it out of the shadows into the sunlight to promote consent, communication, good sexual values and behavior. We are literally sex education through real-world demonstration.
It's so important. And just when you were talking then, I thought on a smaller scale, I've got a 12-year-old, nearly 13, and he, like all of us, I've seen the power of what you see affecting how you think your life should be or what you should do. And those ads, I've got an advertising background as well. So I watch ads critically as you would. I work backwards. I'm like, oh, okay, so the brief was this and this was the shoot and this was anyway. Yeah. He was like, why don't we ever sit on the couch all together as a family and watch a movie and eat popcorn? Or, why don't you jump backwards over the couch and land on on the pillow, and I realised that he was watching, you know, those ads for cinemas or couches where everyone runs in and sits down, and I just had this light bulb moment where I said to him, that's not what families are like. Families are like us. We are very normal. You know, we yell over the toast crumbs and we, you know, scream at someone to unpack the dishwasher, and occasionally we'll sit down and I'll watch 5 minutes of a show with you before I get bored, and then I'm on my phone. That is actually how families operate. No family is doing what they're doing on this sofa ad.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, those old, board game ads from the 80s where mom and dad are there, you know, with a toasted sandwich and rolling the dice. That's not real. And porn is also not real. And these are the messages that, you know, where that these kids and adults are watching it going, oh, right, that's what you do. And it is because we don't talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about your crowdfunding for Make Love Not Porn. This is a world first, Cindy.
Yeah. Well, it is because, you know, I have to tell you, Chrissie, that when I embarked on building Make Love Not Porn, I had no idea that my tiny team and I would fight an enormous battle every single day, basically because every piece of business infrastructure other tech startups take for granted, we can't. The small print always says no adult content. And it's all pervasive. I can't get funded. I couldn't get banked. I can't use, you know, mainstream payment processors. I can't advertise Make Love Not Porn. And I mention that because, you know, we have just launched our first ever equity crowdfunding campaign for Make Love Not Porn. And it's our first ever because historically, no crowdfunding platform would touch us with a barge pole. And the only reason that WeFunder welcomed us is because the wonderful actress Jamila Jamil, whom our listeners may know from The Good Place and She-Hulk, and, you know, she's amazing.
Oh, I love her. Oof.
She's fantastic. And she interviewed me for her iWay community podcast a while back. She's a huge fan of Make Love Not Porn, you know, talks very frankly about how her own sex life and relationships were impacted by porn watching when she was young. And so she actually proposed that she lead an equity crowdfunding campaign for us as our lead investor and brought us to WeFunder. And so that enabled us to actually launch a crowdfunding campaign. And what this will enable us to do is to finally build something that parents and teachers have been asking me for many years, which is the 0 to 18 and beyond sex education expansion, MakeLoveNotPorn.academy. And I've actually, for our listeners, if you go to MakeLoveNotPorn.academy, you'll see my vision laid out there. Because what I want to do is I want to build the global go-to hub for the best of the world's sex education content. So this is an aggregation play. I'm not about reinventing the wheel. I want to build this platform and then invite sex educators all around the world to share with us their own content. You know, coursework materials, books, videos, comic strips. And I use the term educator very broadly. Sexual health and wellness experts, therapists, anybody informing and educating in this entire area. Now, at the heart of everything we do at Make Love Not Porn lies human curation. Humanize, vet. You know, we'll vet every piece of content to make sure it's safe, we endorse it. But the important thing is we will then publish all of this segmented by age appropriateness. So if you're a parent freaking out going, oh my God, my 6-year-old just asked this, what do I say? You know, we will show you, you know, we'll give you the tools and content to be able to have an age appropriate conversation with your 6-year-old. If you're a teacher to the class of 14-year-olds, you know, here are age-appropriate teaching materials. If you're an adult, access all areas, because adults are just as desperate for information. But the important thing, Chrissie, is that the Academy will be where children and young people can access sex education without parental teacher gatekeeping. And here's why that's important. I have a friend who's a mother, and as you have to these days, she monitors her kids' browsing history. So this happened some years ago. Her son at the time was 8 years old. And she saw, to her horror, that on the family computer, he had Googled sex for children. So she freaked out, but did the right thing, stayed calm, sat him down. Darling, I see we're looking for this. Just talk about it. And honestly, this anecdote is adorable and horrifying in equal measure because her son wanted to learn about sex. He was a child. He knew he was a child. He wanted to learn about sex in a child-appropriate way. He sweetly, innocently Googled sex for children. You can imagine what came back, utterly traumatized. And so the academy will be where an 8-year-old boy can enter his age, and we will only serve him age-appropriate educational content. Now, some of this will be free to access, for that example, but we'll also charge to download, subscribe, bulk buy if you're a school, different revenue streams, different use cases. And basically, what I want to do is I want to enable all of my sex educator friends to make money. And the reason for that, Chrissie, is because, right now, nobody goes into sex education to make money. I have friends, as I mentioned, all around the world, a brilliant network of educators. They face all the same problems I do. Their content gets blocked on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Their accounts get suspended. They're banned from advertising. We're going backwards as a society when these giant media platforms are censoring and deplatforming open, healthy sex education, especially the female lens on it. And they can't even make a living doing what they do. I want to change that because this is enormously valuable work. So that's the concept for the Academy. And at last, this crowdfunding campaign is enabling us to actually build and launch that. So we're targeting $1 million. We're about a third of the way there. We've raised $320,000 to date. And that's already enabling us to hire people to work on the Academy and to start building it with the hope of being able to launch a minimum viable product in a few months' time. So I'm thrilled that is finally happening. And I would love to say to our listeners, if you appreciate, everything I'm talking about, please do go to wefunder.com/MakeLoveNotPorn and microinvest. The minimum investment is $100, so it's very affordable.
Fabulous. I'm going to be absolutely on board with that. Before we go, I've just loved talking to you. I just want to ask a couple more things. I first came across you when you were sitting on a stool, perched, if you will, on a stool in a natty set of blue lingerie, saying to me, what makes you sexually desirable is you, and your body is hot as hell because it's yours. Someone is going to find you as hot as hell. What if history has proven that is not the case?
Honestly, there's no such thing as proving that's not the case, Chrissie. And this is exactly why Make Love Not Porn exists. Because at Make Love Not Porn, we celebrate real-world everything. Real-world bodies, real-world hair, real-world penis size, real-world breast size, real-world vulvas. And the reason that's important is because you can talk body positivity all you like. You can preach self-love until you're blue in the face. But at the end of the day, nothing makes people feel great about their own bodies like seeing people who are no one's idea of aspirational body types getting turned on by each other, desiring each other, having an amazing time in bed. In a world where every message popular culture sends us tells us you are not hot, sexually attractive or desirable, unless you are this skinny, six-pack abs, look like this. Our amazing real-world sex videos demonstrate what people really find hot and attractive and sexually desirable in the real world. And our members write to us and say, you made me feel better about my own body. One woman left a comment on the video where it was a Make Love Not Porn star couple, and the woman is large. And this woman left a comment saying, it was so empowering to see a woman of my body type being sexual. Thank you for this gift. One man wrote to us and said, my girlfriend and I now feel able to be more open and sensual with each other because you made each of us feel better about our own bodies. And the ironic thing, Chrissie, is, you don't even have to go to Make Love Not Porn to see what people find hot and desirable in the real world. What I say to people is the evidence is all around you. And what I mean by that is wherever you live, wherever in the world, okay, especially now it's summer, by the way, take a look around you at the couples walking hand in hand down the street, sitting in the park, kissing and cuddling. All around you, you see what people actually find hot and desirable in the real world. The evidence is right there in front of your eyes. What makes you hot and desirable and attract to somebody else is you. It's your unique personality, your unique character. And then, as far as they're concerned, your body is hot as hell simply by virtue of being yours.
I love that. Now, you've got a Substack of which I am a subscriber. Thank you, dear Cindy. I would like to finish this chat with a letter that I found on another service that I subscribe to called Quora, Quora. I love it. Right? Pops into my...
I know it, yeah.
I don't even know how it happened. I don't even remember subscribing, but every few days I get these amazing things about all sorts of stuff. But this one weirdly came through 2 days ago and I thought, I'm going to ask Cindy about this. So, dear Cindy, by the way, you can Google Cindy Gallop. Her Substack is very, very easy to subscribe to and affordable.
Absolutely.
And it covers everything from, personal problems, relationship problems. You can ask Cindy anything, how to pack amazingly. I've been using all your tips. It's, how to fire people. Everything's there. Dear Cindy, I made that bit up. This was not to you. This is something that I ripped off. I am 47 years old and single. What should I do?
Oh, my gosh.
That's it.
Honestly, first and foremost, I would go, why is that a problem? Especially, Chrissie, because as far as I'm concerned, the older you get, the better life gets. So by the time you're 47, generally speaking, you will have a good sense of what really matters in life, in relationships, in friendships. You will hopefully by that age know yourself pretty well. Again, I would hope that you would know what makes you happy. And, even when the question is that brief, I suspect it's absolutely driven by societal pressure. Looking around you, all your friends are partnered. And honestly, I would just go, why is that a problem? Carry on living your life, because when you are making yourself happy, you will absolutely meet people. And at some point, potentially equally late in life, you could meet somebody who is, the perfect match for you. But in the meantime, live your life, enjoy it, make yourself happy, and just see what happens.
Learn a new skill, plant a herb garden, go for a walk, redecorate your room. There are thousands of things you can do if you're 47 years old and single.
Exactly.
Cindy Gallop, it has been a joy. Thank you for your, the way that you have rewritten the way women should be seen in society at any age. I just love you. You are such an important voice.
I really appreciate hearing that, Chrissie, and it's been a joy to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Man, I just really want to blow some shit up now to you. Follow Cindy on Instagram at Cindy Gallop to keep on top of the revolutionary bits and bobs she's forever coming up with. And if you don't think I now say fuck that shit for a game of soldiers, then you're absolutely wrong. Till next time.